Jennifer, thanks for taking time to join us today. I know you've built your firm from what once was feeling like hanging on by the skin of your teeth. So I think the last time I talked to you when we were in Denver together at the group program, I think you said 22 or 24 employees currently. How many do you have now?
29.
29. 29. And that's just in the primary business, not the secondary business. So to speak. The content marketing machine that you've created is the secondary business, which is in itself its own podcast.
Yeah.
But the purpose of today's conversation, so first off, tell everybody where you're at, just so they can get a framework of where you're at, because I want people to have a sense of where you're at. And then I'm going to start hitting you with some hard questions. You ready?
Yeah.
Right.
So I own a law firm. I'm a solo owner here in Westlake Village, so Southern California, in the heart of the real estate world. We represent hundreds of businesses in the real estate space. And in my spare time, we've added multiple practice areas, including estate planning and, a whole new world of business, which is how we are at now 29. I created some strategic partnerships that have allowed us to collab with some other partners to really grow the business and build a thriving firm.
And you and your husband, Fred, who the key to the success, from an operations perspective, you guys have really done a phenomenal job. But it didn't start like that, right?
Yeah, well, and I would say Fred's key to success for operations of our home and our business, right?
Yeah, well, Fred is let's back up just a couple of minutes on this, because you and Fred met when you were a single mom in college and you were an escrow agent. That's my recollection. Is that true?
It is true. So I did not take a traditional path to being a lawyer, let alone a law firm owner. I got pregnant at 18 and dropped out of college, had to get a job, had to raise a kid, figure out life very, very quickly. And so I did. I started my career in escrow. So I did transactional real estate for 15 years. When I met Fred, I was struggling. I'd gone back to undergrad at UCLA, was doing mobile notaries to pay the bills while I was going to school, trying to raise a kid and keep a roof over my head. So that's the me that Fred met.
Yeah, and so the things were chaotic, stressful, hanging on by a thread.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, just tell the story, because I like this story, how you guys met. It's a good story.
So we actually met at a dojo, it seems like a very odd place to meet your future partner. And I would say it is. And it really was just the coincidence of events that got us there. I was going to UCLA. I was going at night, and there was a rape on campus. And it freaked me out. I was nervous about walking around campus by myself. If you've ever been, it's huge, right? And lots of open space, lots of areas for concern. So I decided I would get some martial arts training to make myself feel more comfortable. That's my problem solving, right? Like I'm worried about getting attacked, so I'll go defend myself. Self-defense, my worldview, right? But I have at that point an 8-year-old child who I don't spend enough time with because I'm going to school and working. So I'm like, okay, this is a perfect mommy and me opportunity. So Amanda and I joined the dojo. Fred was an assistant instructor at the dojo. So that's how we met. And within a few months, we moved in together. He was buying a house. He needed someone to help him pay the rent on the house. We moved in together, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so then you went to law school and, built a massive practice, but it wasn't always a massive practice. There was a lot of chaos in learning how to do things. And I think you came in, and I'll put it in the show notes, the practice growth program group that you joined was probably, you did a phenomenal job, but I don't want to talk about that today. I want to talk about something different, which is a fascinating conversation that you and I've had, and impacts men and women differently.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge of when people listen to the podcast, usually they want to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I challenge them on trying to have both more money and a great life.
Right.
And I think you've allowed me to framework something differently, which is I call having it all needs new rules, like it needs a new framework. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that our perspective of having it all really is what they sell you in the magazines isn't the reality, right? And so I really do I've spent a lot of time trying to figure this out for me. And I feel like I've built some tools that are useful for anyone who's really trying to figure out what a life that they want to live that is supported financially looks like, right?
Well, how did you reach this insight yourself? Like, what did you learn that allowed you to go, I need to approach this differently?
Well, I joined Atticus at a time when I was ready to jump off the ledge. I'll just be very frank. I had started a law firm. I knew how to bring in business. So I was doing that, but I didn't know how to process the work. I didn't understand the financials. I didn't understand managing people. I had no time management system. And so I had one of the four pillars working, but when one's working and the others aren't, it's a freaking disaster area. And that's what I walked into Atticus with, was literally this just disaster area. And over time, over the years, like, quarter by quarter, meeting by meeting, problem solving by problem solving, the firm became stable, right? I feel very comfortable that we manage all four pillars pretty well. We have our days, we have our moments, we have our issues, but we have a solid firm that can stand up and perform because we did the work, right? But as I was doing that work and solving those problems, I got depressed, right? So as I became more successful, I became less happy. And it didn't make any sense. I'm like, this is working. Why am I not happy? And it was getting worse and worse, not better and better. And I literally had to figure out, why does the image of success and the stability, like all those things that are real happening, why is that not making me feel better? Why is that not allowing me to have the fulfillment that we think that brings you? Right. And so I really had to dig into what was going on,
And what did you discover?
that I was holding my enjoyment back, right? Like, I was just, like, we are the lid on our law firms, we are the lid on our personal fulfillment, right? All of my old shit was getting in the way, and my images of success and what that looked like were blocking my ability to appreciate and enjoy the things that I was growing and developing.
When did you realize that? I know it sounds like a dumb question, but
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of people on this issue and they don't quite see it. They start to exceed financially.
Right.
They start to, give all the benchmarks of success.
Yep.
And then somewhere they realize the, great practice part's working, the great life part
Right.
may not be quite there. And they go through a lot of emotional, like you said, baggage. They go through
Yeah.
baggage. And they go, I've got everything I wanted, but I don't feel like I thought I would when I got to this stage of my life.
Right. I would say the triggering event was the death of my stepfather.
Hmm.
So his death resulted in a shift in my life and my relationship with my mother, and what the future was going to look like for me, honestly, right? That triggering event really forced me to deal with things that I hadn't dealt with from my childhood, and really figure out who I was going to spend the rest of my life with and what I wanted that to look like, right? Both as a child and as a mother.
So say more about that. I mean, that's a pretty loaded statement, but what do you mean by that?
Well, my mother was a very successful professional. She had built a successful career, and like me, didn't it meant I wasn't always home, right? I work a lot. I am not that mom who's dropping the kids off every day and picking them up and taking them to soccer and taking them, right? I'm not that mom. And my mom wasn't that mom, right? And so what those relationships look like and what condition they were in, both as, again, as a daughter and as a mother, were complex. And I didn't feel like I had done a good job at either, being a daughter or a mother. And so I think those feelings of inadequacy, incompleteness, guilt, like all of that was keeping me from where I wanted to be and enjoying what I had today.
You said the magic word, I think, guilt.
Yeah.
And so the magic word there is guilt. I think I see my women colleagues
Hmm.
and my male colleagues express and experience guilt differently
Yeah,
and behave with guilt differently. So is that a fair statement?
absolutely. I think women will talk about these things more than men will. Talking about it doesn't necessarily solve it, but we will speak on it, I think, more than men will. I mean, I just put on a women's event and, we focused it on guilt. We can have that conversation. I don't think I could put on an event about guilt and get a bunch of men to show if I told them that was what we were talking about.
Yeah, no, the men won't show up.
Right.
They won't show up for that. They probably won't. You'd have to sneak it up on them in a different way.
Right.
They're not, they're not going to show up for a conversation, especially a public conversation about guilt.
Right.
I think probably I was mentioning this to you before that the most profound book I've read on men, anxiety, depression
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
Terrence Real's book, which is aptly named I Don't Want to Talk About It.
Yeah.
So at this point, I can assure you most of the men in the audience have paused this episode and have moved on. So let's you and I talk, and
Yes.
let's assume that if there's any guy listening, he's listening not from the perspective that he needs any help or he wants to hear anything.
Yes.
He's going to do it to support the women in his life.
Right.
Okay.
This is for your wife.
This is for your wife. This is for your daughter. This is not for you because you don't need this, nor would you
Right.
ever be in a conversation needing this, nor would we ever publicly talk about as a man needing this. I know
Right.
I don't need this.
Of course not.
And there's nothing here. I have no guilt feelings being raised Catholic by a good Catholic German mother. I think we could spend hours discussing that thing. So let's talk about with you, and then we'll maybe put a plug in for men towards the end if
Yeah.
anybody's still hanging with us.
Yeah. I mean, I felt guilty that I hadn't been a good enough daughter. I felt guilty that I wasn't a good enough mother. And I didn't even remember what the things that I had seen as joy even were. When I was, again, another female thing mostly, right? We will admit it, we go to therapy. In talking to my therapist, she's like, "What did you enjoy when you were a child?" Right? Like, what brought you joy? And the reality is, I didn't remember. Like, I didn't even have frameworks of what things were joyful to me. And I literally had to sit down and think about my childhood, which I had blocked out most of, right? To really figure that out. Guess what? I liked bike riding. I ran track, right? Guess what? Now I'm doing triathlons, right? Like, I had to find the things that I remembered and liked as a kid because I didn't even remember what they were.
Yeah, for you, like I have no recollection of what that is, and now who I am, I don't have any, like you
Right.
said, relationship to joy or pleasure. This is one of the reasons that when we started pivoting Atticus from guiding your practice to great practice, great life,
Yeah.
you'll see a lot of the branding materials saying cultivating a great life.
Yeah.
Because a lot of lawyers, a lot of professionals, they've worked so hard for so long. If you ask them what makes you happy, they're like, I have no flipping clue.
Right.
I have no flipping clue. Mrs. Riley will no doubt listen to this, but I have a terrible joke, and she actually gave me a T-shirt on this for Father's Day. That earlier in our marriage, when the kids were younger, I said my job is three things: I drive places, I carry stuff, and I pay for things. I basically joke that I drive, tote, and pay. That's basically dad life, hashtag dad life.
Right.
And I lost somewhere in the feeling of being connected to, and I really, I have to thank my children
Yeah.
because I start to see the world through their eyes. I play
Mhm.
video games that Grace does because
Right.
I see the world through her eyes. I've learned a lot about airplanes and trains through Mark because I see the world through their eyes. How did you start to work through this? Like, talk to me a little bit more about the journey of guilt, slaying the dragon of guilt, which I don't
Yeah.
think you can ever slay, but you just wrestle with. Talk to me more about that. I know my experiences. Talk to me more about it.
Yeah. Well, again, I really had to figure out what I wanted, right? Like, aside from the money was important, and I definitely needed that to do everything I want to do. But once I had gotten there from that perspective, what did the rest look like, and where was I aiming? I needed a target, really, just like you need a target financially. You need a target of what is going to make you happy. So again, I literally had to map out, what do I enjoy? Like, one of the questions I get asked, what's your hobby? What's a hobby? Like, I don't have a hobby. Like, who has time for a hobby? Right. So I literally, my answer to that is I spend time with my kids. Like, that's the closest thing to a hobby that I have. But that was really a lot of it. So when I started figuring out what things I enjoy, I decided my kids enjoyed those things too. So, we go hiking on the weekends, and my kids, to put down the tech and go for a hike with us. I go biking with the kids. We go running, we swim. Like, we have found activities that collectively we do together to allow us to bond. I rebuilt a relationship with my mother, and that was, figuring out, what does she enjoy? Well, my mom likes to go to the theater, so I built a relationship with her that allows us to go to the theater and go see shows, and spend time in places that we both are going to enjoy ourselves and be able to build those bonds and relationships in ways that we didn't previously, because our lives were in the way of those relationships. So it literally was, what do I like? Where do those over intersect and connect with the people in my life that I want to have relationships with? And then getting that stuff on the calendar, right? Like, it's one thing to say, oh, we should do this. Oh, this is a great opportunity. Well, you have to take the opportunity, right? So if anybody's seen my stuff, I color code my calendar like psychotic, right? From the time I get up to the time I go to bed, it's planned and color coded. Well, pink is my family color. And when you look at my calendar, a large percentage of it is pink when it didn't used to be, right? And so those are the things that I've been able to do to try and prioritize, my joy, which happens to coincide with the relationships, because the reality is we're most at joy when we're with the people we want to be with and have good relationships, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to check in on something, because sometimes when people start to focus on the most important relationships in their life,
Yeah.
then they start to feel guilty about the practice.
It's funny how that works, right?
Yeah. It's like, I'm like trading, I'm feeling like I should focus on my life and have a great life. Then I start feeling guilty about the practice. And I feel bad because I'm taking huge amounts of time off, and I feel bad about this. I assume you went through the same experience.
Well, yes and no. I still work way too much. So that hasn't stopped. My practice is getting plenty of attention still from that perspective. But I will say, how I practice and what I do has absolutely changed. And that absolutely goes with the shifting of a mindset of what's important. For example, if a referral source called, that would have been my highest priority a few years ago. Like, I would have dropped everything, including my family, to pick up that phone and call that referral source to deal with that prospect, whatever it was, whatever they needed. If someone was asking me to do something outside of my scope of work because they're a friend and they really needed a favor, I probably would have said yes years ago, right? Even though I didn't want to do it, and I was it wasn't gonna serve me or my firm or them, honestly, in any way, shape, or form, right? So, before I started Atticus, for example, my rule was every phone gets answered when the phone rings, including by me, right? Like, our office at the time, there were 6 of us, not 29 of us. Could you imagine now? But every person's phone rang when the phone rang, right? So, because it was a priority, we were answering that phone. I don't care if you were doing anything else. If that phone rang, if it rang more than 2 times, someone was getting yelled at, right? It was the priority that that phone needed to be answered, because that was my worldview of customer service. And Atticus said, you need to stop answering the phone and you need to schedule calls. And all of that scared the crap out of me. But I made those shifts and changes, and I don't answer the phone now. And I don't even check emails now. So, things that I would have said I couldn't possibly do and would have been commitments to the firm that I thought were necessary really aren't. But those were things that over time I've shifted. So I'm as committed to my practice, and it's getting as much of me as it was then, but it's a very different me. And it allows me to be there for the firm and for my family.
So it's interesting because if you went from, you basically, your employees have almost grown, what, sixfold?
Yeah, something like that.
And your revenue, how much have we increased your revenue
I did the
since?
math. We're over 500% increase in revenue from when I started Atticus. It's more than 5 times.
Yeah, great. And so over what years? How many years are we talking now?
I think we're at 9 years.
Yeah, so you haven't made 10 years. We're seeing significant growth.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd like you to do is help me create a shortcut for
Yeah.
people who are going through the same experience, which is
Yeah.
feeling guilty both at work and feeling guilty at home, just feeling guilty everywhere.
Right.
And one of the things that you said to me, I'd like you to explain, is the problem isn't you, it's the load. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is that there's more than you can possibly do at your firm at all times, right? And there's more than you can possibly do at home at all times, right? So there's no question that the load is going to be beyond your capacity. It really goes to picking the pieces of the need, because the need is there. It's not a lack of need, right? The need is there. You have to decide which needs you're going to fulfill and then let the rest of it go, right? And there's multiple ways to let it go, right? We have the whole diagram. If it's urgent and important, we should be doing it. If it's not urgent and not important, no one should be doing it, right? And everything else falls somewhere in that middle ground, right? One of the tools that I have developed that's really helped in this regard was the way I calendar and do time management. So I used to have a to-do list like most people, but a to-do list is just a setup for failure because you're going to put 20 or 30 things on there. You can do 3 of them. The rest of them aren't going to get done. You're going to feel guilty because you didn't do the other 17 or 27 or 157 that are on the list, right? And then you go home every day feeling like a failure instead of like a success. So I don't have a to-do list. Instead, if something is on my to-do, it has to go on my calendar. So it creates a capacity for what can be done, that if it doesn't fit, either it's not that important, it can be delegated, or it does need to go on the list and something else needs to come off, right? So I set a reasonable, pretty high bar, but a reasonable calendar for the day. And if it doesn't fit on there, I'm not doing it. And I'm not feeling guilty because I didn't do it, right? So it's delegated, it's delayed, or it's dumped if it's not on today's schedule.
Hi, I'm going to briefly interrupt the conversation with an exciting announcement. You became a lawyer to make a difference, serve clients, and build your own law firm. But when every client question, team decision, and financial concern lands on your desk, the firm starts running you. And working harder only makes you more essential to the chaos. The Great Practice Breakthrough is designed to change that. The event is on September 18th in Orlando. You'll build a practical plan to reclaim your time, strengthen your team, improve profitability, and create a firm that can operate without your constant involvement. Then 30 days later, you'll get a live follow-up session that will help you overcome obstacles and keep moving forward. Register before August 15th to save $300 and use code podcast100 for another $100 off. Your firm should support your life, not consume it. Reserve your seat using the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. You're describing the perfect intersection between focus management and time management.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will use their to-do list like a time management tool,
Yeah.
and then beat themselves up on it, just like what you described.
Every day. I did it for years.
Yeah, for every day. And this is one of the reasons that we create the My Great Life Focus, just to put a plug in for that. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yep.
But the purpose of getting focused is so you make a decision about what matters most to you, and then you make decisions on the time available. So focus management first, time management second.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that we have at Atticus is teaching people how to become focused and understanding time management is critical, but you
Mhm.
have to be focused first. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, we have to work on their time management skills before you can even get them distinguishing focus management skills. So you're really describing an important thing. I just want to take a moment for the audience to kind of hang out there for a second, because what Jennifer is talking about is something everybody goes through. Like, I have a to-do list that can, it's just incredible. But that doesn't mean that that should be where you're focusing your time and energy. So really choosing how to focus comes in alignment with what that great life and great practice looks like to you. And then the to-do list becomes a function of organizing activities. It
Yeah.
doesn't become a scorecard of how you perform, if that makes sense. And this is a difficult thing. This is, like you said, guilty. You go home, you're feeling guilty. I only did 4 of my 150,000
Right.
to-dos that I have to do, right?
Right. Well, I will tell you, I use a remarkable, right? But I do the daily focuser every day. And most days, what's on my calendar does shift in the morning when I'm doing that. I will look at what got, because other people put things on my calendar. I'm not
Yeah,
the only one
yeah,
who controls my calendar.
yeah.
And I will look at what today is designed to be. And I often will say, nope, I'm not doing that. Someone else needs to do that, right? Like that's not the best use of my time, right? And I will literally that day take stuff off and move other stuff on and then delegate or again, dump whatever it is, what I'm going to do with it. That morning focus really does drive the day. But then during the day, look, you're still getting all these inputs, right? And so one, you have to hold the line on what you decided for that day, not letting the emails, the phone calls, the emergencies, which are often not emergencies, get in the way. I don't check my emails during the day. So we have an escalation system at the law firm. The staff texts me if something is urgent that needs my attention. It used to be I'd get a lot of texts. I get maybe one a week now
That's
because
that's awesome.
most of the time they know I'm going to tell them it's not urgent. If they've interrupted me and I've now had to respond to their text, it is rare that it actually is an emergency. There's someone else who can handle it if it is, by the way. I have
Right.
29 freaking employees. Someone else can do it, right? So if it really needs me, it is rare and they know that. And so it is literally maybe one a week that I get now.
I love
Um,
it. I love
and
it.
even that one's probably not urgent,
Yeah.
but you know,
So let's talk about the second thing that you've told me, which I really like. Guilt is not always the truth. What do you mean?
I literally just had this experience and was a total unexpected bomb that hit me last week. So I have 3 children, but I have 2 young children, right? Freddie's 14 and Caroline's 11. And they
And
just,
and just put a plug in for,
yeah,
you and Fred. They're awesome kids. I love your kids. They're just incredible. They're just
thank you.
incredible. I know you're talking about, like, my kids have not seen me in 10 years. It's not true, because your kids are phenomenal. You guys do a great job with your kids. Just phenomenal kids.
So this is the thing. I'm a weekend mom and I'm totally fine with that. On the weekends, they're a priority. And because we have resources, we do cool ass things on the weekends. But I'm not there from, in the mornings getting them ready for school. And then that doesn't need to be me. I did used to feel guilty about that, but I don't anymore. Right? Like I've let that go. That doesn't need to be me. But what I dealt with this last week, I was totally unprepared for. So Freddie and Caroline went to sleepaway camp for a week up in the mountains here. This is the first time that they haven't been with family and away from us for more than a day or two. I planned the trip. I convinced Fred and the kids that this was a good idea. And my whole worldview is that we're teaching them to launch. So this is exactly what they should be doing. My God, I went through the worst depression last week over them being gone. I was a disaster area, totally unprepared emotionally for them to be gone for a week, right?
That's awesome.
So, and I put on a hard shell, right? Like I'm tough and I manage a lot. Oh my God, I was a puddle, a mess all week last week. So, the reality is we're human, right? Like we feel this stuff, we do. But I also did the right thing. My kids had a great week. They grew personally, emotionally, all of the things that were supposed to happen. And the reality is, I let myself feel the real world of that's hard. Like being a parent's hard. And we are emotionally attached and we do want to care for them. And our hormones and our heads and all of it go a little haywire when they're growing up and becoming their own people. So, so yes, for all of it and all the work I've done, I would say I think we do have good kids. I'm not ashamed to say that I think we've done a good job as parents, and I think we are teaching them to be good citizens. I can do that and still run a business and not feel guilty.
That makes perfect sense to me. There seems to be a pattern to guilt that you've talked about. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, I think it goes to, kind of what expectations we set and really taking it from what the magazines or the billboard. You can tell my age when I talk about magazines. My kids don't know what a magazine is, but the billboards and the TV images, right? What people are supposed to look like, right? And we grew up with this nuclear family concepts, and right. And so I don't fit any of those molds. If that's what I'm comparing myself against, I'm going to fail every time, right? And okay, where I live, a large number of the moms do not work, right? We have this whole community, Lululemon community, who walk around in their gym clothes but don't know where the gym is, right? They know where the coffee shop is, right? And that's where they spend their morning after they drop the kids off, before they show up to pick their kids up, right? Like that whole community. And, they're at every event and they're planning everything. And I don't interact with them. They and I are on a different page, live a totally different life. But I used to think that's what I wanted, or that's where I needed to be, or that was the good parent and I wasn't, right? Like I used to have all, like those were all expectations that were in my head of what success looked like. I would be so depressed if I didn't have my profession, my work, my clients, the business that I have. It's not about the money. It's about my ability to feel self worth and accomplishment. So I had to let go of that's what I'm supposed to be, or that's what success is, right? I think many of them are happy and many of them are drugged, right? So it's one or the other, right? But neither would be a good fit for me. And so I had to shift my worldview of what I should be and where I should feel guilty and where I don't feel guilty that I don't run the PTA. I'm not going to. And honestly, I don't want to.
No, no. And I think it's safer for everybody in the PTA that you don't run the PTA.
It would be much more efficient.
I understand, but I'm just going to say right now, you should not run the PTA. I'm pretty clear about this. I think anyone listening to this episode, including your husband, we would all safely conclude that's safer for the rest of California that
Yeah.
you and the Lululemon moms that you do not run the PTA. I
It's
think it's
funny because Fred is actually on the school board for our school. So he does that stuff. And perfect. He can be involved and do that. It's not where I belong.
yeah, I got it. So let's talk about this. You say guilt is expensive. What do you mean?
Well, I think when I started letting go of guilt and allowing myself to make the choices that fit me, it allowed our firm to grow in ways that I was holding us back before. From taking on the wrong client to, I would say there's a lot of things that I used to do, right? In the name of being a good person and doing the right thing. I tried to do pro bono work, and they're the most ungrateful clients I've ever dealt with. And so that wasn't the right fit for me. So I give back by volunteering and being on boards and using the tools I have in a what I consider an effective way, right? So it was, yes, I need to do charity, but do it in a way that is in alignment with my worldview and my skill set, right? So guilt was holding me into these buckets and these boxes of places that I thought I should be, instead of me picking where I want to be and allowing that to guide where we're going and what we do.
Yeah, I get it. So I hope people are listening. I'm going to highlight a few things, then I'm going to make a point and see if you agree or disagree.
Yeah.
So guilt itself is probably the most worthless emotion I can think of because it consumes time, energy, it wakes you up at night. It creates a vortex of just neediness, like it's a black hole.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that you pointed out for lawyers who are trying to, quote, make more money, and this is the reason we do so many episodes on emotional intelligence. We've tried to really get lawyers aware that sometimes the cap, like you said, is not marketing.
Yeah.
Sometimes the cap is not finding good people. Sometimes the cap is your own emotional ceiling. And I've said this, I did this in a workshop, I think last week when I was teaching a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked me why a lot of lawyers can't grow, like they get to a certain level and they can't grow. I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, because a lot of law firms are not capped by the lawyer's skill, they're capped by the lawyer's emotional need for validation.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this in a lot of firms. I see this in a lot of businesses where the owner has some extreme emotional needs. They don't see them, but they have emotional needs to be liked, validated, felt good, and they cap the organization where they have their needs met emotionally, but they're befuddled because the firm isn't growing financially. And
Yeah.
this is a hard thing to appreciate. And one of the beautiful things about coaching and being in group programs is you start to realize, oh, wait a minute. I think I found the problem. I think I found the problem. The problem is me,
Yeah.
how I'm interacting with the world, how I'm interacting with my business. It's not anything but me causing the complexity of the growth of the firm. So
Yeah.
what you're saying is deeply profound and deeply important and deeply scary.
The reality is, I have all of those challenges just like everybody else, right? Where we're at is still capped by my ability to manage, but I have found outlets for, like, my second business is my outlet for my ego needing to be polished. Because I do public speaking so people tell me how great I am. And that gives me that affirmation. So I don't need it in the law firm. I can focus the law firm on what is the best thing for the firm, not what's the best thing for me. Right. So I have found ways to fill those voids that aren't holding the firm back in some ways. Right. Like a lot of this stuff, the concept of building a management layer and not managing everyone and not having a deep personal relationship with every employee was really challenging for me. I'm at 29 employees. I think I know all their names, right? that's that's what I can manage today. If I needed that level of connection that I thought I needed, I wouldn't be able to manage 29 people, right? And what, I can't manage 29 people. I wouldn't be able to manage a company that has 29 employees, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you couldn't conceive of a company had 29 employees if the ceiling was I must have a deep personal relationship with all of them. Technically, that would probably cap you at 4 to 6, and that's where a
Right,
lot of lawyers get stuck at 4 to 6.
right.
So, yeah, here's the next question. You said the following, and I'd like you to explain it with a little bit of specificity to our
Sure.
audience. You're allowed to care deeply without caring everything. What do you mean?
The reality is that things are going to be hard some days. And, what we do, no one calls a law firm because things are going well, right? They're not paying our rates to tell us how great things are. Their lives are in some sort of distress that has triggered the need to reach out for us. And we're empathetic and, we care and we want to solve their problems and all of that. But we can only do that to the capacity that we are able to manage our own comfort, our own ability to deal with it. So, one of the things I've had to learn is that not every client is the right fit, right? When we do that initial discussion, if they're on a different page than I am, I politely say, we're not the right firm for you. I'm going to say no, we're not going to be able to help you. You need to go somewhere else, and I would say 20% of the prospects that I talk to, and I would say I talk to about 10% of our prospects, but of the ones I talk to, about 20, it's the 80-20 rule. About 20% of them are just not on the same page. And that conversation is enough for me to say no. And actually say, I used to not be able to say no. I'm a high I, I'm a high D, but I'm a high I. Saying no was something I had to learn how to do. I literally like have it on the wall. No is a complete sentence. Right. And, appreciating the stress, the drama they're in, but also knowing that I'm not going to be able to produce what they want, and it's okay, that I don't need to take that on, right? Those are some of the decisions and some of the changes that I think has allowed us to, you know, I have stopped taking on new litigation cases, right? And litigation is a particularly profitable area of our firm. So this was a hard choice for me, but I don't enjoy them. So we're just not doing them anymore, right? That high conflict just doesn't serve the life I want for myself or my team. So those are some of the things that I care, but I don't have to take on everybody else's crap.
Jennifer, speaking of guilt, I'm feeling guilty that I've kept you for so long. But I'd like to start wrapping up. And
Yeah.
one of the things that you've shared with me and you're teaching me that I really think the audience would love is when guilt says you should.
Mhm.
Talk to me about that for a minute. What is that? What's that about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we are so focused on service and pleasing and trying to do everything for everybody that we don't take the time to like truly think things through. You don't have to answer a question immediately, right? You don't have to make a commitment immediately. So the idea for me is pause, right? It is okay to say, I appreciate the conversation we've just had. Let's both take a minute, think this through, decide. I often do that after I do a consult. We'll say, okay, this has been a great discussion. Let me formulate the action plan for what this will look like and set out the budget, because one of the things we're doing is flat feeing things, right? So I will pause a conversation, not throw out a number at the moment we're talking to them, not throw out the plan at the moment they're talking about them, give myself the time to truly think through what we're taking on, how it's going to affect the firm, how it's going to affect me, how it's going to affect them, what the math looks like, and then provide the right answer. And ultimately, then a happier client and a happier team because we've thought through what we're doing. We're not just rushing into whatever it is because we feel guilty or responsible or any of those emotions that drive those decisions instead of the thoughtful, planned decision making that we should be doing when we're taking on these types of cases and the legal work that we're doing.
So I think for the audience, I want everybody to, the practical takeaway that I'm pulling out of this conversation with Jennifer is when guilt says X, I will answer Y. So in this case, when guilt says you should, I will answer with I'll consider it, or let me
Right.
think about it, or let me take a pause, or you could do a full complete sentence and say no, no
Yeah.
thank you, and just
Yeah.
say no thank you. Fantastic conversation. Thank you. Thank you for all the brilliant work you're doing. Thank you for being an inspiration to so many people out there. And thanks for sharing the inner workings of guilt from Jennifer's mind. So I appreciate it.
Hopefully
I totally
someone will
appreciate
get
it.
something out of it.
Well, hopefully, I don't know if there's a man left in this particular conversation. Shoot me an email at steve.riley at Atticus
Yeah,
Advantage. Said Steve, I hung in there the whole way.
I did
I
it.
hung in there the whole way. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. So, any final thoughts for you, Jennifer?
I will say I think that this shift in my mindset has allowed the lid that I mean, it has been a pretty steep jump from I was hovering at 8 to 10 to now, almost 30, like in a year, right? Like this shift has been pretty quick. And I do think that these mindsets and this kind of shift in thinking has been a huge part of it. So I know this is all gobbledygook emotional shit, but the reality is it has a very, very definite financial impact. It has for me, and has really taken us to a different level financially by being able to let go of some of this stuff.
I think it's fantastic. Guilt's an anchor, and on a lot of practices, the anchor that the lawyer is swimming around with is really keeping the income and the gross capped
Yeah,
because they're too busy carrying the anchor to really pay attention that they can let it go,
right.
explore life differently, and cultivate that great life and learning how to grow it. And that's really what you brought to us today. So thank you. And always thanks for being such an incredible, courageous member of our community. I love having you here. I love Fred. You have done such an incredible job. And thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining this week's episode of Great Practice, Great Life. Please tune in weekly to get the next episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, like, and don't hesitate to share it with a friend who you think this episode could help. With that, thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's episode.